Right. Hi, everybody. I am here with Colleen, and we're here again with Marla Mervis-Hartmann. Hi, Marla.
Hi, so good to be back with you ladies.
Yes, we're so glad to have you back and welcome back. We've had Marla on the podcast before and just a wealth of information. So if you haven't listened to the old episode, just definitely highly recommend it. Um, the things that she is such an expert in, the things that we talked about in the episode, the things that she has written books about and given TED Talks about is, I think, very applicable to a lot of people and really helpful. And so we're just really glad to have you back. You've written a new book, which we'll be talking about today, and the information that you share in there. And the name of that book is Befriend Yourself: Finding Freedom with food and peace with your body, which is just huge for so many people. It's huge for me, for Colleen, and I know a lot of our listeners as well. So welcome.
Yeah, I'm excited to go deeper into what we shared before. And yeah, highly, like as you said, highly recommend everyone to go back and check out that episode because I feel like we got into some good nitty gritties and really looking forward to seeing what the Reiki energy pulls through us.
Yeah, that's the other thing. She has a lot of qualifications, certifications, all the things. But in addition to that, she is a Reiki master, uses Reiki in her work, and also talks about how Reiki can help you in this process of this kind of self-love, self-worth, food freedom, all of this kind of journey that so many of us struggle with. So, Marla, let's go ahead and actually just talk about your new book because I am interested in the the things that you write about in there and how that's helpful for people on this journey.
Yeah, so I when I was asked to write this book and I was looking back at my recovery, I was looking for the common theme. And what I realized is that I was learning how to become my own best friend. That's how I healed my relationship with food and my relationship with my body. So I grew up in a family, we were just talking about this before. I have sisters, I have a mom, we're all so close. They are great friends. And one of the things that I've been blessed with throughout my life is just the ability to make beautiful community and to make really powerful friendships. And I'm a great friend. But what I realized is that I didn't do that for myself. I didn't know how to use this beautiful concept of friendship until I began to lean into this idea of friendship and how that healed our relationship with our body and our food. So when we think of the concept of self-love, and there are a lot of kind of sappy memes about it, just love yourself, right? And all of us here with, who are connected to the Reiki energy do understand what that feels like, right? That divine love, that experience of being in that wrapped up feeling of love. However, when we look at our relationship with our food and our body, how do we take that concept, that feeling that we feel with Reiki and actually make it a practical experience? And so if we look at our relationship with our body and our food and we allow the concept of friendship to come in, it all can open up. And so for example, a good friend listens, right? A good friend will listen to you. And so that's what we get the ability to do is listen to our body. Listen to what our body wants to eat. Listen to ourselves. Listen to this being, this intuitive being, this sovereign being, rather than using the external, right? We listen to ourselves. We prioritize our friendships, right? When I prioritize myself and I prioritize self care and I prioritize time with myself, then I'm more attuned. And then I'm not now stress eating because I've connected to myself and how we talk to ourselves. right? Like, think about how your friend talks to you, right? They're not talking. If you have friends that are not talking to you very nice, then you need to relook at your friends. However, I know my friends, if I'm talking smack about myself, they're like, no. Right, we're not doing that. That's not how I see you. That's not who you are. And they call this out. So I wanted to give a really practical experience of what friendship looks like and how it can help us heal our relationship with our food and body.
Oh, I love that. I was lucky enough to have a session with Marla. And one of the things that after the session, I had kind of, when I was really in that deep listening around it, one of the things that I realized is that I, and this will wrap around to that being a friend aspect, is that I never really learned how to validate myself, that I had always received validation from an outside source. So I grew up, with I was very fortunate in my life and grew up with parents that were validated. I was relatively good in school, athlete, all of these things that I was seeking from the outside of good job, and so that talk never really I never kind of gained that skill for myself. And so it's really
Mm.
interesting that this is like the idea of what we're talking about today, because I would say that to a friend. I would absolutely like, you're doing so great. I'm so proud of you. Like, great job. And so, through this journey that I've been on personally with this kind of self love aspect, which I didn't necessarily understand fully before, is that that's one of the things that I've really noticed that, oh, that needs to come from internally, especially as you get older, because you have less and less people that are validating you. And also, if you have kids, it can sometimes be the opposite, And so you do have to kind of learn that. And that's just such, I love this idea around that, because I would validate a friend.
I love that. And I love that you are learning that lesson, not from a place of pain and suffering. You didn't learn to do that because no one around you validated you.
Yeah.
You had validation, and yet there was still, like, I had friendship all around me, but I needed to learn how to do that for myself. And what you're getting is, okay, I now can do that for me. I don't need the external. And really that goes into our bodies, right? Because our bodies are changing and shifting. And so there may have been a time in our lives where we got attention or comments about our bodies that felt validating. And then as our bodies change and shift and we get older, it's just the focus is different. And we can really feel that void. And when that void isn't there, that external validation, or our body begins to change and shift, it it is, and for some people that it can hang on for longer, but that void can feel like there's something wrong and I need to fix this and I need to fix my body and I need to go on a diet or I need to change something. And really that is holding that experience of discomfort and change and giving our bodies and our beings grace and knowing that that's part of the process of life and being really close, right? Really close. I think that's one of the things that I learned with Reiki is just the amount of self-compassion that is needed in this human experience. However, with these bodies that are changing and shifting, and not even, we're talking about body image, but let's even talk about how our bodies are functioning, right? Like the things that have happened to my health, and I'm like, what the heck? Right? And the upset and the anger I've had at my body for not having the energy that it should. And that's a whole other journey of self-love and body love. That no matter what is going on, that I show up with compassion for these parts of my body that aren't working the way that I want them to work.
Well, and the practice that I can intellectually have of the gratitude around all of those things, like that I am, that I am aging, right? That's a not necessarily not everybody does, and that I are the things that are working for my body, that I intellectually can have such gratitude for that, and then yet the embodiment of that can be a little harder in practice.
Well, I think that that is let's talk about that a little bit
Yeah.
because I think for people like us and the listeners here, you're gravitating towards a higher vibration of love, this Reiki, this idea of gratitude. And then what happens is we now have these feelings of upset or anger with our bodies. And then we go into the shoulds. I shouldn't be feeling this way. I shouldn't be having these feelings. I should be in appreciation. I should be okay with my body. This is not okay that I'm feeling this way. And that is, some people will call that spiritual bypass. I call that, just not being with what is and not showing up like a friend would and be like, "Oh, this sucks.
Mm.
Like this really, like I am having a really challenging time with this. I'm sad. I'm upset. I'm angry. I'm going to have a pity party. I'm going to let myself feel all of this. I'm going to go into the loss, right? The loss of, for me, it's those times where I'm not feeling well and it's like the loss of opportunity. Like, so there's a moment of grief there. And every time I meet what is, I'm meeting this part of me that says, you are okay in every feeling that you are. And I think that is how we get quicker to the gratitude. We don't get to the gratitude by like Reiki's not here to be slapped on as some band aid. It's here to open us up.
Yeah, thank you. That is a really important point. I love that. Just funny that you said that, because not just one part of it where you were when I was really sick and couldn't do anything for years. I got so sick of saying no to going to events, and you it's like that, missing out of the things. Gosh, I was so sick of it. I'm tired of hearing myself say that, but yet I
Oh,
couldn't, you know?
yeah, I do. I absolutely do. And I think a lot of people probably resonate with what we're talking about.
Well, I think it's such an ongoing conversation in our world and in our life. And one of the things that you just said I really like is also the awareness of allowing yourself to just have your human feelings and experience too. So sometimes taking the pressure off of, like, yeah, I need this pity party today. I'm just doing it. I'm still human. I have it. I'm doing it. And then I know for myself, kind of even what you just said, Robin, if I'm there mentally, I also get tired of hearing myself say it. So eventually, what happens is it catches my attention to where I'm like, okay, now I want to shift. And
Mhm.
and now I want to shift into another way of thinking, another way of feeling, another way of being. And Reiki, of course, helps with that. But I think the body image one, boy, at my age at 68 and watching just women's and men's body image too over the years, it's just fascinating. And my own personal experience from my childhood with it through my teen years, my adult years. Oh my gosh, the body shaming. Ugh, if I could get those years back. And one thing I remember, always saying is that, someday you'll always look back and go, oh, I look back and I think I wasn't fat. Oh my gosh, all those years I spent on that topic. And befriending your body, I remember I was in my mountain climbing phase. And so here in the Pacific Northwest, of course, we have the big mountains. And I was climbing Mount Adams, which is, 50-pound backpack, 2 days up, crampons, the whole thing, like, serious climbing. and getting to the top and going, oh, this is what this body does. Like, I am like really strong and able to do this. And then here's the sad part, worrying about if I looked fat in the picture on the summit.
Yeah. Interesting, right? Interesting
Yeah,
where these things
yeah.
come in. And, you know, it's that humanness though, right? It's like these moments, whether it's that kind of thought or someone else may have another thought where it's just like robbing us of our pleasure, robbing us of like, is it safe to feel this good? Am I allowed to feel this good? Right? And I think when we become super aware, and you had said this before, like when we're aware of what our coping mechanisms are, when we're so aware, when we are such a good friend to ourselves that we know our thoughts, we're aware of them. When that thought comes in, it's like, oh, all right. Yeah, right. I'm not going there. Right? Or, oh, you're here. You're still here? You're still, oh my gosh, let me wrap you up in love that we're still thinking that way. That in this moment, I'm still thinking this way. And see, this is where we need to have so much self-forgiveness, right? Because just what you said, like, oh my gosh, if I could go back and change that and bring back those moments. And I know I've had these moments in my life where I'm like, wow, I am so vain. How could I be so bloody vain that and I just got really mad at myself and really upset. I'm like, I am better than this. I know better than this. And then I just had this moment of like, no, no, no. This is not about vanity. This is about a deep feeling of unworthiness that shows up in this it's this hole that it shows up, and it gets all wrapped up into looking good. And then we have all of diet culture all around us that feeds into that and says, you're right, yeah, you should just focus on it, right? So we have that self-fulfilling prophecy. However, the important thing here that I'm trying to make is that forgiveness for going through our lives the way we have. And and then there's that moment of like, okay, well, what am I going to do now about it? And for me, that's what I am wanting to do, is like take all these things that I've experienced and share them. So many people, that's not their purpose, obviously, to share about body image and food. But I do still think that as a woman, as a person in a body, and owning that I'm going to love myself to the best of my ability. I'm going to love this body to the best of my ability. I believe in the bottom of my heart that this gives people the permission to love themselves. How we speak about ourselves, the things that we're saying, that trickle down into our kids, into our nieces and nephews, and even just the way we hold ourselves at the grocery store and in life, where it's unapologetic. And that's kind of where I am at this point in my life, is like, I want to be unapologetic. I want to be unapologetically Marla. And there's something really empowering about that. And then there's also those parts of me that's like, are you sure? Like, right over here, that part. I'm like, oh, we'll get you on board. We'll get you on board sooner or later.
I also like the term that you're using with this, or maybe the idea of like becoming a friend to yourself in the way that you think of how you act towards other. And I know we've heard that, but it's like this practical tips with it, because I do think that the term for me, self-love, is a little nebulous, and right, like you said, maybe in the nomenclature it has become a little more like, what does that even mean? And maybe it's because of my own journey of like not being able to, that being a journey for myself. And so other people might understand it to a better degree or greater degree than I do. But I do like this idea, like the idea of being a friend to myself in the way that I show up for other people feels a lot more attainable than just saying you should have self-love. Like, wait, but how do I do that? I'm working on it. And I know
Yeah,
that's a
because
continual journey.
it's not this overall experience, it's literally like in the moment. So if we take an example of binge eating or emotional eating or overeating, that feeling of I just ate too much and now I'm feeling a lot of shame around that.
Mhm.
So how do we bring self-love into that moment? How do we like that is when friendship is needed, right? Those are these moments where we need um that experience of self-love. So that can look like a lot of different things. But what I find is the most helpful for people to shift their relationship with food is, is that in these moments where they did have the binge, they did have the emotional eating, and now they're in the shame, is to not try to change or make any sort of decision from that place of shame. And I think that we get that from this Reiki experience. It's like, okay, when I'm in this dark place, this is not the right time to make a decision. But that's what we do. Oh my gosh, I just overate. Okay, so I'm going to make the plan. I'm not going to eat as much tomorrow. I'm going to exercise. I'm going to check out that website about that new cleanse, and we go into fix it mode. And so what does a friend do? A friend just sits there with us and just says, "Gosh, I feel you. I feel you." And even gets curious. Well, what happened? I feel like curiosity is like the key to open up compassion. What led to this? Tell me a little bit more about your day. How are you feeling? What's going on? And that's what we can do for ourselves. Oh, well, I had a really big day. I'm holding on to a lot of grief that I haven't even processed yet. And then, someone gave me the finger on the way home, and you know what I mean? Like life happens. And then all of a sudden we have this shameful food experience, and now we make it about how we did that wrong. And
Mhm.
we're not taking into the big picture. So in that moment, being a good friend to ourselves, we just bring ourselves back into compassion, back into love, back into that Reiki love experience. From that place, now we can choose what would be the right thing for me. You know what? I need to go lie down and put some hands on this belly that is swollen right now and give it some love, or
I,
whatever the answer is.
yeah, I was thinking like, you know what I'd tell a friend? Good for you. You get it. And then just like move on. You know what I mean?
Right?
Like the one
Yeah.
time, rather than the shame.
Yeah. Because I mean, this is the thing. I have been on this road of healing my relationship with the body and food. And it's not like I'm above it all. Right? Like I talk about it, but my coping mechanism ever since I was a child was food and negative body image. So it comes up, it shows up, and it's just now I know. Now I'm like, oh, this is here. So if this is here, then it's telling me that there's something underneath it that I need to attend to. But there are times where I'm upset or angry, and it's like, oh, no, no, I'm eating the chocolate. And I'm gonna eat more than I would normally have said I was, and I'm gonna enjoy that.
I'm going into the trenches.
Uh, yeah, but it
I'm
doesn't
human for
feel
a
like the
reason.
trenches when it's from that empowered place, and when we know ourselves, right? Friends know us so well, and it's not about living in it, it's just about knowing ourselves and being like, "Yeah, this is how I cope, and I'll move out of it." It's that trust.
Well, I was going to say the same thing that Robin just said. I think that the concept of being a friend to myself is such a stepping stone to self-love, where the self-love feels like it's on the other side, and I can get there, but that we are always so engaged in the how to, like, how do you get there? How do you get to that place of self-love? And how do you get to that place of being your own friend? And that concept, though, I truly, I love it. Like, even when I shared my story about the mountain, the part of me that then was a friend was like, so first of all, it was like, oh, that's so sad. I'm sorry that happened. And then I was like, get on with it. And which is, I mean, I probably wouldn't say to a friend, like, just get on with it, but, be like, yeah, okay, that was a long time ago. Keep going.
Yeah, I think that sometimes that's what friends do. They're
Yeah,
like, they give us some tough love.
yeah.
Whatever that is like that. You need to stop doing that. Like, that's not working for you. Like, I'll have my sisters will say, sisters are great for that because they can say things that are just like, what are you doing? Yeah, no, that doesn't. And and sometimes it can have that moment of defensiveness, but then you're like, oh yeah, that's right. It doesn't work for me.
Yeah. Well, I think that's too where we do have those times in our spiritual growth where you do also, like you're saying, with that self-love process, you can love yourself just like you would love a friend. And in spiritual growth, sometimes you just like, wait a second here. I think that's true, whether it's this subject or other subjects about it, that just also it kind of can naturally happen when you're in a process of any sort of spiritual growth. But then there's other times where you're like, oh, wait a second here. And like you're reframing the way that you're thinking about things or moving through life or growing as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, so how has this been? I know we've kind of talked about it, but with your own journey and the work you do. I am also curious. I had a question when you're talking about the self-love part. I think I know the answer, but I just kind of want to ask this question is that self-love doesn't mean that you are 100% like always in that place of like, oh my gosh, I love myself. Like I accept it no matter what. Like that's still like a human experience, right? That you have your bad days.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's about meeting ourselves where we are. And so I like to look at it from this place of we may not like ourselves. We may not like what we see in the mirror. May not like our behaviors. We may not like how we're showing up, but we still have self-respect. We still show up, we still love. We still show up, we still feed ourselves. We still take care of ourselves. So the overarching feeling is love, but there may be things that's just like, yeah, I'm not really liking that I'm doing this
Mhm.
or or the reflection of my life right now. Like, I don't like what my life looks like. Like, and there can be that feeling of like there's something wrong. There is something wrong with me. I'm doing it wrong. I'm not doing my manifesting right, and then I shouldn't even be thinking this because if I'm just going to be attracting more of this, right? Right. I think we go down that rabbit hole of like feeling negativity and then feeling bad about feeling negative and then having this experience of like, I need to get back to love. And I think love meets us wherever we are. Right? Like, wow, I really don't accept this part of me. Okay, I don't accept this part of me. And then we meet ourselves right there, like in that experience of like, this is not acceptable. And then once again, that's where the curiosity comes. But even in that, it's like sometimes those moments of the word disgust comes up for me. Those moments of looking at ourselves with disdain or disgust or whatever, there can be that breaking point where it's just like, I'm done. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not coming back to this disgust. I'm not coming back to this disdain, and I'm not coming back to this behavior that is causing this experience. I'm done. And that can be really empowering. That can be like a turn of events that can come from this place of deep darkness. But sometimes those moments of deep darkness really do allow us to break through. So if we say that those moments are not good, then we're not allowing for, sometimes for a lot of us, I know for me, I needed to have dark nights of the soul. I needed to go into some dark places in order for me to realize that what I was doing with my body and my food was not okay for me. And I don't think that I would have had the experience that I've had I not had those moments of deep darkness.
When did this reframe come in for you about the befriending yourself? Like, where was that kind of aha moment that you're like, I need to write a book about this?
Okay, so honestly, someone asked me to write the book. I never would have written a book.
Oh, interesting.
For me, it was like, oh, I like to talk. I like to speak, right? I like to share. And so this was a birth for me. For those who say, I want to write a book, and I'm speaking to you, like, if you want to write a book, go for it, do it. Get lots of support from you. Like, I knew that God was like, this is a project that I'm going to help you with. And I did it. And it was one of the most challenging experiences of my life, and one of the biggest births I've ever given. And so I'm so glad that it's out, so now I can talk about it. But sometimes that's the thing. We're asked to do things that we normally we're being pulled, and we're asked, and we have to say yes. If we don't have to, but are those moments where it's like, there's no way I can say no to this. There's no way. So it took me a long time. It took me over 5 years, even maybe longer than that.
And so you'd been talking about this concept, and that's why somebody was like, "Oh, God, you need to write this book. Can you write this book?"
So I did my TEDx talk, and then I was asked to write this book. So
Okay.
while I was looking and I was thinking about my journey of healing my relationship with my body and my food, that's when I realized, oh, that's what I've been doing this whole time.
Mhm.
I've been becoming my own best friend. That has been the theme the whole time.
Yeah.
And it didn't hit me until I was asked to sit down and write about my journey. And I think one of the reasons it took me so long to write this book is that through writing the book and through sharing our experience, we learn so much about ourselves. I mean, when I think about the things that I've shared through, programs and podcasts, there's been these moments of like, oh, that moment, that was really important. Oh, that part of my past, that part of what I was taught and ingrained at that age, that is a part of my story. And now, even after I've written the book, I've had some experiences with my dad. I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't even write about it in the book. I could write a, because I think the more we're on this journey of self-healing and self-reflection, the more we get to understand ourselves more. And that is one of my expertise with people, is that they come to me and they have so much angst and so much upset around their body and their food, and they don't know where it's coming from. They don't understand, they don't get it. And we begin to kind of pull it apart from like, oh, this is a wounding, or this right here, this moment in time created an experience of needing survival, and then food came in, or negative body image came in, or dieting came in, or restriction came in. And so we have to unwind that. We have to unwind that from our belief system. We have to unwind that from our patterns. We have to unwind that from our nervous system. And that is why Reiki is so perfect for this journey, because it helps us do all these things, right? The system of Reiki helps us to realize where our belief systems are not from the light, helps us to calm our nervous system. It helps us to be in our intuition and use our intuition and hold us when we are going into these sometimes challenging places, these things that we need to look at in order to heal. And we need that energy of unconditional love, that energy of Reiki.
Yeah, the life force and the vitality.
Yeah.
Also, and the colors and I think the other part of it that you have said several times is, as a friend to yourself, that you are also listening to you. And that just in the same way a friend would listen to you. And so that's another part that I think Reiki really makes a difference, is that it helps us get to that part of us so we can hear ourselves, to even to take the time to listen, calm it all down so we can even hear ourselves as a friend.
Yeah, because so many of us are, let's take that idea of like, what do I eat? What do I eat? What do I eat? I don't even know. Oh my gosh, I have all these thoughts in my head that are saying, don't eat this, do eat that, not too much of that, but what did that person say? And then our head is so full, our body is full of stress, maybe from the day. We're feeling emotional, and then we're trying to make a decision. I'm using trying as a key word here. And what I heard you say so eloquently is that Reiki is the tool to bring us back into presence with ourselves. It brings us back into our body. It brings us back into the tenderness of ourselves, so that then we can ask our body, what do we want? Because that's a big question for me when I'll say we need to listen to our body, and people are like, I don't even know what that means. I don't know how to, I don't know, I don't know what that means, and I don't even know how to do that. And so Reiki can be that tool, because if we are giving ourselves Reiki, we do notice that it immediately brings us to another state. It brings us back into our body, even if we're giving to others, right? That it is an experience. It is such a beautiful tool to bring us into this moment. And then I find that asking the body is really, it's a muscle. It's a muscle like meditation is a muscle, and our intuition is a muscle. And so it's the intuition that lives in our body. It's the voice of truth that listens and is in our body.
And like you said earlier, when your nervous system is, you're more in a sympathetic state, that it is, I feel like it's a bit harder to hear than when you're in the parasympathetic state. And so the Reiki can help with that as well, with that, just one of its innate things is that it helps with stress reduction. And so that also can help to calm our nervous system so that we can hear ourselves a bit better too. I mean, it's not like it has to be in order to hear ourselves, but it can help in that journey.
It can. And also, I think it's so important. I know for myself, there will be those moments where I'm stressed out. I'm like, what can I do? I'm like, oh, how about Reiki?
Yeah,
You
totally.
ever heard of that? Oh,
Totally.
yeah, I think I've been
You
doing that
forget.
for 20 years. That's a good thing to do right now. So, but what I've shared with my clients, I've done for myself is I've created a list. I've created on a pretty pink paper, and I've wrote a list of like self-care. What are things that I can do when I'm stressed, when I'm overwhelmed? Because when we're in that state, we're not thinking correctly. And so to have something that we can go back to, no, not stuffed in like a journal that's in the second drawer of the whatever, it's like right there available. And I have my clients do that all the time, so that when they're emotionally eating or they're binge eating, they're having that moment. It's like, oh my gosh, what do I do? I don't want to go to the food. I don't want to go to this negative thinking. What do I do? It's like, okay, let's go to the list and see if there's anything on that list that I can do. Because it's not about not doing the behavior. It's about being with these feelings underneath and caring for ourselves. So for people who are emotionally eating or overeating, there's this will that wants to come in, this self-will that's just like, I'm not going to do that. And I get that. And sometimes we need some will. However, it's not just about not doing it. It's about, why do I want to do it? And how can I be with this feeling? And sometimes it is just tension that wants to be released, or sometimes there's a feeling. And so having that self-care list can be super helpful. It's definitely helped me over the years.
I love that idea. And actually, as you were talking, I think what I could do too is put up a list of things I can eat instead. And because I know yesterday I had that, and I can't remember what I chose to eat, but I chose to eat something that, wasn't really what I wanted to eat. And I thought, you know what? I had those sheet pan vegetables I would have been just as happy to eat, but I didn't think of it. I
And
reached for the habit. I reached for the easy, the chips or the crackers and, those things. And I would have been just as happy. So as you were speaking, I thought, well, you know what? That would be a good thing to have just so I would have a predetermined, oh, just do this.
yeah, and it sounds like in that moment there was a need to slow down. Like that is the moment of the slowing down and asking your body. Because where you didn't even know that you needed to look at the list.
Well, that's true. Would I have even if I had it?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So it's that moment, and I think that's where I think the muscle is of the moment of, and that's where the self-love is, and that's where the idea of friendship is like when you're gonna go and have dinner with a friend, you're like, where do you want to go? Right? You tune in. What are you feeling? Right? And we do that for ourselves. What am I feeling here? And for some of us, it depends on where we are in our in our evolution with food. I know early on, um, it was way too overwhelming for me and too diety for me to plan my food. And then I also realized if I didn't plan, I went into that starvation, and then I would overeat. So even to this day, because nourishment in food is so important for us to thrive.
Yeah.
And if we're not planning for these basic needs, so many people are living on. I saw a meme and it was like, I don't know how, it was a doctor was saying, I don't know how many women come to me and say, I drink a pot of coffee, I fast for 20 hours a day, and I do really strong exercises, and I don't know why I don't have any energy. Right? It's like these basic needs, and food is a basic need. So sometimes just having that idea, okay, what is for breakfast? What is for lunch? Oh, I am not, my cupboards are not full of food that's going to actually nourish me. Not just nourish my body, but nourish my mind, nourish these parts of me. Because I feel like there can be, for some people, a self-worth, right? So taking that step to get the healthy food, taking that step to take care of ourselves can be a big piece of it. Not even the eating of the food, just getting the food.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, is there anything else, Marla? I feel like we could always talk for so long with you. And what else would you like to, is there anything else that you'd like to talk about with your book or anything else with Reiki or?
You said you have an upcoming class, right?
I do. Yeah. So I know this is coming out. So you're all hearing this probably as a couple days before, but I'm doing a book club. And so I'm doing a journey with people for 6 weeks into the book. I made it super affordable for people. And this is an opportunity for us to come into community. And because I think that so many people feel so alone with this,
Mhm.
they feel so alone. They feel like no one feels this way. I just had a client say to me, "Gosh, I just feel so much shame sharing all these stories." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like I know everything that you're talking about, and I've heard it all and I've done it all." And so when we're in a place of unconditional love, when our behaviors and our feelings are accepted, there can be such a relief. I know early on when I was surrounded by people who were struggling with food in their body, and to hear people's stories and be like, "Oh my gosh, you do that too? Oh my gosh, I thought I was crazy." And even like, "Oh my gosh, we're all crazy, but we're all crazy together." Right? But there's just that common language and common experience of like, I'm not alone in this, because we think everyone's got it going on.
Mhm.
People thought I had it going on. I was in a body that you would think that I definitely had my food and I liked my body, but I didn't. I didn't like my body. My food was crazy. So we can't really judge. And that's the piece that when you ask me that, Robin, is there anything else? And that's the piece that came up for me that I wanted to share, is the idea of comparison,
Mhm.
and the idea of how comparison never works. Even if you're comparing yourself to someone and you're feeling good, better about yourself, that's not that, it just never works. It never makes us feel good. And I think in the world of social media, we are so bombarded with images, 2D images of an experience that we compare ourselves to.
Mhm.
We either are judgmental of that person or we're judging ourselves. And I think that it's something to slow down and think about. Every time we maybe see an image or we see someone walk by and we have a judgment or we're comparing ourselves, to slow down that moment. And for me, what I'll do is, well, I like to do the process of Ho'oponopono, which is the Hawaiian prayer. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And I'll just say that over and over again. But I'll just bring in so much love and I'll just send that person so much love. So, when you go on social media and you're like, really? Oh, really? It's like, okay, Marla, don't do that. Send that person love. Send that person love. Let love come through. Or, towards myself, like, oh, I feel so less than from that person's body, that person's life. Like, okay, what part of me needs love right now? And so I think it's something just like negative self-talk, something that we need to tune into to notice when we're in comparison, and how we can knock that off and what we can do instead.
So important.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Well, tell people how they can get a hold of you and where to find you. We'll have, of course, it all in the description as well, but your
Yes.
book club.
Yes. So you can go to my website. You'll find everything there. Loveyourbodyloveyourself.com. You'll find my TEDx talk. You'll find my book. Of course, that's on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and all the places. And you'll find access to the book club, and invite you to reach out to me. Email me. Connect with me. I have a free course called Breaking the Cycle of Emotional Eating. And I know some of your listeners have already signed up for, but that is a free resource that gives a lot and gets you kind of going on this. But you can always reach out to me. You can always ask a question. Um, Find me on Instagram, Love Your Body, Love Yourself, always. And as you can tell, I'm pretty approachable and accessible. So feel free to reach out.
And I want to mention again your website, loveyourbodyloveyourself.com.
Thank you, Colleen. Thank you,
Yeah.
Robin, for having me.
Thanks,
Oh, thank you
Marla.
so much. Yeah, what an, you know, ongoing lifetime topic. So thank you so much for your work with this. I mean, I have to say, I felt a really powerful healing while you were talking, just even from sharing my story that I didn't even know was there, like zero idea that that's somewhere in there. And sharing it was enough to do that. And then watching that whole process of that friend coming in to help and to heal. So yeah, it was
Beautiful.
powerful. In fact, I felt like I was like, I'm kind of out there. I have to come back.
The transmission, right?
Yeah, right. It's
Love
all
that.
coming through. Thank you so much, and for all the listeners too.
Right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.